Can you beat Skyrim without breaking any of the laws of Islam? Shout out to Guy Bordeaux for the inspiration. Before we get into the challenge, we need to break down what the laws of Islam really are. Islam law comes from two main sources: Sharia law from the holy texts of the Quran, and the 5 pillars of Islam from the Hadith. So we need to make sure to follow both of these as best we can in Skyrim to have the perfect halal run. The 5 pillars serve as a foundation for the faith of Islam. They are as follows: Shahada, or the declaration of faith; Salah, the daily prayer; Zakat, charitable giving; Psalm, fasting during Ramadan; and Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. Luckily for us, all 5 of these are actually followable in Skyrim with some minor tweaks, starting with the easiest law to complete: Shahada, the declaration of faith. This is fulfilled simply by uttering the phrase, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." For Skyrim, we'll just type this into the console commands, as there's no way of speaking this or typing it in chat. Pillar 1 of 5 completed already. This challenge should be a breeze. Spoiler alert, it was not. We start off the game as the most halal seeming race, a Redguard guy. His name will be Mustafar. Journey through the Helgen prison, where Ralof tells us to pick up Gungnir's gear. But wait, we can't actually do this, as it is stated under Sharia law. Whoever plunders the wealth of others is not one of us. The principle here is that there's a difference between greed and necessity, and that moral law always outweighs convenience. The Islamic concept of izza, or honor, maintaining dignity in action even unseen. This led us to our only weapon being our hands, which is perfect because the next law of Islam is to never duck a fade. We will exercise shortly on the Imperials. It is stated that we must only defend ourselves, but that we cannot retreat, so we must wait for them to attack us before fighting back, giving out mean 1-2 combos like McDonald's Happy Meals. We go to pick up some things, such as the gear on the Imperial soldiers that attempted to kill us. But wait, this is considered looting as well, isn't it? Well, no, actually. What's taken from enemy combatants, those who raise their blades first, can be considered ganima, or lawful spoils of war, but even this has its own rules. The Quran stating that the spoils belong to Allah and His Messenger, meaning they're not for greed, simply for justice or survival. In this case of open combat, we deem it for justice and survival, so we keep the loot we picked up and advance through the dungeon, making sure to only slay those who attempt to attack us first, until we run into the bear. Normally, we'd walk up and sneak this bad boy, sending his fluffy ass back to the grave. But there's a few laws of Sharia law here at play as well. 1, you cannot hunt unless out of necessity for survival, and you can't eat predators anyway. And 2, the halal food rule. Every kill in an animal must be a one-shot with a sharp blade, with Allah's name spoken via saying Bismillah, and the tools must be unseen by the animal. Therefore, we must sneakily pass by the bear to avoid breaking Allah's will. After leaving Helgen, we made our way to Whiterun, avoiding as much conflict as possible, except when our life is endangered and we are forced to fight. Once in Whiterun, it was time that we finally talk about the second pillar of Islam, Salah, or the daily prayer. This would serve as one of the hardest parts of the challenge to keep up with. See, in Islam, you are to pray 5 times a day facing towards Mecca. These are to be done at certain times, those times being dawn, midday, afternoon, sunset, and night. And these must be done no matter where you are. However, there are a few exceptions to this rule. If you're in a jihad, traveling, or in danger. And these are governed by the laws of Qasr and Yam. Forgive my pronunciation. Qasr is where you'd shorten the prayers, and Yam is where you'd combine prayers, such as midday and afternoon, and an evening and night. And you can see it in this excerpt here. And when you travel throughout the land, there is no blame upon you for shortening the prayer, if you fear that those who disbelieve may attack you. Indeed, the disbelievers are ever to you a clear enemy. So basically, in times of travel or hardship, Allah does not burden the soul beyond its ability. So I shorten my prayers when needed, not out of neglect, but in gratitude for the mercy granted to travelers and warriors alike. Pray in Skyrim, since we cannot do the animations. We will simply find a body of water, crouch in it 3 times, and then face towards what will serve as our Mecca, in this case, High Hrothgar. This would be ongoing daily for the rest of the challenge, but we've effectively completed our second pillar. And that brings us directly into the third pillar, Zakat, or charitable giving. In real life, there's some stipulations behind this pillar for Muslims. I believe it goes something like, Zakat means purification, because by giving, the believer purifies their wealth from greed, selfishness, and materialism. The Quran states, take from their wealth a charity by which you purify them and cause them to increase. Traditionally, this zakat is around 2.5% of liquid assets of a Muslim's annual wealth. But in the Skyrim challenge, we truly want Allah's favor and to cleanse wealth, so we will be donating 50% of our septims earned and any raw materials such as ores. So I go to the beggars within Whiterun and start by giving them septims. But I realized you can't donate more than 1 septim, and only once per day. So instead I decided we would purchase things from vendors on the street as well and merely drop the items in front of them, serving as gifting our wealth to them, completing the third of our 5 pillars. This now brings us to our first real major gameplay altering law in the challenge, the 4th pillar, known as Ramadan. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, in which Muslims fast from dawn to sunset for 30 days. It serves as a time of spiritual elevation, restraint, and charity, where worship is intensified and the soul is disciplined. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those before you, that you may attain taqwa, or God consciousness. So in Skyrim, we will take this as we cannot eat or drink from dawn to sunset, but this also includes potions, so we must be very careful as this effectively eliminates any way to heal outside of the depths of night or natural regeneration. Restoration in all magic is eliminated via the law of Seer. All food and drink and potions are eliminated via Ramadan, which will effectively last the entire challenge. We must now be very careful in choosing our battles, as one slip up and we will die permanently, ending the challenge. Now that we know of 4 of the pillars, you may be wondering what the final one is. But before that, we must prepare some gear. And to do this, I must pay a fair price for my items. I do not haggle unfairly, nor do I steal. Islam commands honesty in trade. The honest and trustworthy merchant will be with the prophets, the truthful, and the martyrs. Now that I had fully acquired what I needed, it was time to continue. But remember when I spoke briefly on Mecca earlier? This brings up our 5th and final pillar of Islam, the Hajj, or pilgrimage. Now obviously Mecca as it is in real life does not exist within Skyrim, so I thought for a moment on what would be the most realistic place to connect with Allah on this spiritual pilgrimage, and High Hrothgar stood out easily to me. The journey of climbing the 7,000 steps is already considered a pilgrimage by those in game already, so it was an easy correlation, but Hajj is more than just walking to High Hrothgar. We must dress simply, in robes with no weapons drawn. I begin this journey not for glory or power, but to fulfill my Hajj. May Allah accept it from me. We must meditate on Allah. For this, I will choose the first shrine on the 7,000 steps journey. We walked on foot from Riverwood all the way to Iverstead, avoiding all violence in accordance to the Hajj rules. Now this is technically running from a fight, which breaks Sharia law, but it is also said that we should have no weapons drawn, so just for the pilgrimage I'm allowing myself to retreat, so to speak. We must walk the 7,000 steps to reflect on Prophet Ibrahim's perseverance. We ascended the 7,000 steps of High Hrothgar, pausing to reflect at shrines and scenic points, again, while avoiding all conflict. And then we must pray atop High Hrothgar facing the sky. At the summit we faced the sky, knelt, and left an offering to Allah of gold, food, and books. O Allah, accept this from me, I have come seeking you. As I stood on the mountaintop, far above the world and its distractions, I remember that this life is only a test. All power, fame, and fortune fade, but the soul endures. To Allah we will return. This would mark the completion of all 5 pillars of Islam and allow us to finally start the task of beating Skyrim. The goal of Skyrim, if you don't know, is to stop this world-ending dragon from, well, ending the world. Luckily for us, I'm a professional and got this game down to a T. We first made our way to Bleak Falls Barrow, encountering non-believers in the form of bandits and the undead, putting them to rest only after they tried to bonk me first, of course, making sure not to steal or loot anything as to not desecrate the dead. After this, we made haste back to Whiterun, to give the court non-believer Sovngarde the Dragonstone. Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous toward them and acting justly toward them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. This excerpt basically says that we may speak with Sovngarde, we may deliver the Dragonstone and complete our obligation, but we may not engage in or approve of his magical practices. Though Sovngarde engages in seer, or sorcery, I speak to him only to fulfill a duty. I do not seek his knowledge, nor do I approve of his path, but Islam commands justice, even with those who disbelieve. After delivering the Dragonstone to Sovngarde, the guards informed us that a dragon had attacked the western watchtower. Jarl Balgruuf called for us to help his people, and naturally, we rushed to aid them, not out of desire for violence, but to defend the innocent. Under Islamic law, fighting is only permissible in defense, and in this moment, Whiterun and its people were under attack. With the sun setting behind me, I whispered Bismillah and joined the battle. The dragon roared, a clear aggressor, a threat to life. I fought only to stop its destruction, both of myself and the tower. But upon its death, something strange happened. I absorbed its soul. The soldiers called me Dragonborn, and this leads to a potential issue. The Thu'um, or shout, in the lore of Skyrim, shouting is a gift from the divines, and the voice is seen as almost godlike. But in this run, I have reframed it. The Dragonborn was not made by the divines, he was created by Allah, chosen for this task, and the Thu'um is not learned magic, but an innate ability granted by God in this case. So yes, we can and will use shouts for this challenge. But like everything else in this run, they can only be used for good, never for personal gain, never to harm innocents, and never to oppress. We climbed the 7,000 steps again, this time not for Hajj, but to meet the Greybeards. They do not challenge my faith, nor do they try to convert me. They simply teach me how to use what Allah has already given me, so I learn the word of power, but I never bow to their gods. The Greybeards then asked me to retrieve the horn of Helgen Windcaller. This meant entering yet another ruin, likely filled with undead and bandits. And according to Sharia law, dealing with the dead must be done respectfully. Desecration is haram, so I resolved only to fight the undead if they posed a threat, avoiding them otherwise. And I would not steal from tombs unless the item was required by quest progression or desperate survival. On my way, I encountered a shrine of Talos, where worshippers gathered. As a Muslim, I cannot participate in shirk, the associating of partners with Allah, so I avoided the shrine entirely, rejecting their false gods silently. Worship only Allah, and associate none with him. Upon reaching the end of the tomb, I was greeted by no horn, but a letter to head to a Riverwood inn where we were secretly summoned by Odahviing, a member of the Blades. She gave us the horn, but also revealed a disturbing truth. Odahviing was returning and the dragons were resurrected. She asked for my help, and here I made a clear intention. If this is to preserve life and defend the innocent, I will help, but I will not break the law of Allah in doing so. With that intention in place, I followed her to confront a resurrected dragon in Kynesgrove. The dragon attacked a village. Innocents were nearby. I waited for it to strike before fighting, in accordance with Islamic principles of just war. No aggression, only defense. I whispered Bismillah before drawing my sword, as every combat must begin in Allah's name. While attempting to take down the dragon whilst fasting, I almost faced defeat at its hands. It seemed like the end of this challenge was coming sooner than expected, but luckily, necessities permit the forbidden. In Islam, preservation of life is one of the 5 higher objectives of the religion. If fasting leads to serious harm, injury, or death, you are not only allowed to break your fast, you are obligated to. So I chugged a few potions and slayed the dragon. After defeating the dragon, Odahviing suggested infiltrating the Thalmor embassy. This brought another dilemma. Entering the embassy would involve deception, sneaking, and potential theft, all of which are generally haram under Sharia law. But if the goal is to protect lives and expose evil, Islamic scholars allow limited deception in war under the principle of maslahah, or public benefit. So I prepared, no stealing and no unnecessary killing, only what was required to gather intel or a threat on my life. It said that lying is permitted only in 3 cases: during war, to reconcile between people, or between a husband and wife. Inside, I tried to avoid killing where possible, but unfortunately, it became mission critical to defend myself and to defend my accomplice, Malborn. I looted only what was needed or considered military gear, and made repentance for every morally gray area of this quest in my next prayer. After escaping, I returned to Odahviing. She had proven loyal. Islam values loyalty to allies, so I continued working with her. My next task was to seek out Esbern, a man who was also a member of the ancient order of the Blades. He's currently said to be residing deep within the Riften Warrens, hiding away from the Thalmor. Upon delving into the Ratways, I once again had to defend myself from bandits, brigands, and even the Thalmor once more, showing they were truly enemies of Allah who must be dealt with, true violent non-believers. And then making sure to pray once we were out of the Ratways safely. Esbern would tell us our next objective with Odahviing's wall, deep within Skyhaven Temple. And once again, the path was dangerous, but I remained committed. Finish what you start unless it breaks your faith, the Sharia principle of Odd, or fulfilling your covenants. At the temple, Esbern revealed Odahviing's history. We learned that I would need to learn the shout Dragonrind, a tool of immense power, to obtain it. I had to speak with Parthenax, the dragon who used to serve Odahviing. Here lies a moment of deep Islamic reflection. Parthenax is a being who once committed great evil. He has since repented and now seeks peace. Islam teaches that even the worst sinner can be forgiven if they repent sincerely and reform. Say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves by sinning, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. He had repented and now acted in the name of good, so working with him is fine and does not violate the Sharia law. Now to learn Dragonrind, I had to recover the Elder Scroll. Esbern had no knowledge of where it might be, so he sent us off to the Palace of Seer, known as the College of Winterhold, a place filled to the brim with non-believers or practitioners of sorcery. If you've ever played Skyrim, you know there's about to be a major issue. I stated earlier that we absolutely cannot practice magic. It's one of the core elements of this challenge under Sharia law of Seer. To enter the College of Winterhold, Feralda wants you to show some semblance of magical abilities. So what do? We have to strain our faith, our shahada, simply to achieve our mission? No, that would be haram. Instead, Feralda saw reason, as I stated I was the Dragonborn, and she allowed me to enter upon demonstrating my Allah-granted abilities. We headed to the Arcanium, a great place filled with knowledge which I'd love to return and study, but alas, we have an overarching duty to save this world. The librarian told us all he knew of the Elder Scrolls, and mentioned a man who studied them, Septimus Cygnus. but he had gone missing in the ice fields north of here years ago. Luckily, Skyrim holds your hand and there was a waypoint directly to him. The old madman then tells us of where he knew of an Elder Scroll, deep below the surface of the world, in a place known as Blackreach, a vast, dangerous Dwemer ruin where my faith would no doubt be tested. But there was about to be a major problem for us again. See, up to this point, we'd only done the main quest, and as such, we were quite underleveled for the creatures we were about to encounter, the Falmer and the Dwemer Centauri. If we went in there as we were, we would simply be crushed, and that would effectively end the challenge as we only get one life. Since I'd rather not have to do this all over again, we went on a classic off-camera training arc, simply goading every bandit into combat and slaying dragons when they attempted to defeat us, eventually leveling up to 20, and of course praying. Most of these points went into our one-handed and block skills respectfully. Now, it was time I followed a Sharia law of seeking knowledge. It is stated that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Even if the knowledge is dangerous, if it serves to protect life, it is worth the risk. And well, this was to save all life, so I'm sure it's fine. So we dove into the depths of Alfdeland to attempt to get to Blackreach, making our way through, having to again unfortunately end lives I didn't wish to, but they attacked first, and rule number 1 of Islam is to never duck a fade. So I retrieved the scroll from Blackreach and returned to Septimus to give him the lexicon in exchange for information I agreed on earlier. But after giving it to him, we learned the thing he sought to open contained the heart of a so-called god. But there is no god but Allah, so I went to leave him, refusing to work with him any longer. This would be where we'd be tested once more. Upon trying to leave, a devil blocked our way, whispering sweet words of power into our ears, but Allah protected me as I denied his offer and returned to my mission. With the Elder Scroll, I returned to the throat of the world, praying before entering the time rift to witness the moment Dragonrend was first used. Learning its words and preparing for seemingly the final battle against Odahviing, fierce combat between man and dragon broke out. But with the use of Dragonrend, it looked like we would defeat him, fulfilling our duty to Allah, but the dragon could not be defeated just yet and flew off. Parthenax let us know of a way to find Odahviing by capturing one of his comrades in the old Dragon's Reach Palace of Whiterun, which was built to capture a dragon by an old Nord king. We ventured out, making sure to fulfill our Salah when needed. Jarl Balin thanked us for our previous help with the Watchtower and granted me the title of Thane and my own personal shield maiden for combat. While we're not supposed to flaunt our wealth or title, it does not mean we cannot have them. I merely refuse to abuse its power. Lydia said her classic line of, "I am sworn to carry your burdens." But in Islam, every living creature entrusted to you, a servant, a friend, or an animal, is an amanah, a sacred trust from Allah. You are answerable for how you treat them. So we must never overburden our friends, and as such, I must carry the burden of my gear myself. The Jarl stated it was quite insane for me to want to trap a dragon in his palace, which admittedly is true. He also said, though, that we must find a way to stop the civil war conflict raging over Skyrim, or else his city would burn at any attempt to fulfill my request. But wait, we aren't allowed to join either side of the civil war, as the groups are fighting over the religious right to worship either 8 or 9 deities, of which is haram, as Allah is the only God. So instead we take a neutral approach, deciding to have the Greybeards help us set up a peace treaty between the two groups temporarily to save the world. But of course, Delphine being Delphine decided it was a good time to say that I had to kill my best homie Party Snacks. If you recall earlier, I mentioned that line. Say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves by sinning, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. Therefore, I refuse to kill Parthenax, for who am I to choose who is a sinner? He has committed no transgressions against me or anyone else since repenting. Now back to the plot. It's time to trap a dragon. We shouted his name into the sky, and being the prideful creatures they are, he came to us, and we trapped him, and used him to fly to Skoldafen. I avoided killing unless attacked. Every action I made was with intention. I did this not for power, not for pride, but protect the world and fulfill what was entrusted to me. As we reached the summit of Skoldafen, there waited for us what can only be described as the devil himself, a dragon-worshipping priest, the truest of non-believers. We fought valiantly, taking him down, but in the end, his dragon companions swooped down in a blaze of fire and ice, taking us down. It would seem the journey would come to an end, but Allah had other plans for us. It is stated, do not think those who were slain in the way of Allah are dead. Rather, they are alive with their Lord, receiving provision. I should have died there at Skoldafen's gate. The dragons tore the sky, and the priest's lightning burned my skin. But my time wasn't mine to choose, for it is Allah who gives life, and he who takes it, and none else. If I still draw breath, then he willed it so. So I rise again, not from magic, but from the mercy of Allah to finish what I began. We stood up from the brink of death, jumping into the portal. Sovngarde. In Sovngarde, I avoided the worship of Shor, but still respected their beliefs, as I was trampling on what they deemed to be the afterlife. Haram, of course, but I came to do my duty, not to celebrate with the dead or participate in polytheism. I stood with 3 heroes of old and defeated Odahviing together, shouting our oppressor down from his perch among the heavens, down to the foot of man where he belongs. I then returned to the world, not as a king, not as a god, not as a savior, but as a servant to Allah. I gave away my gold to the poor, I rejected power and titles, I dressed modestly, I prayed, and I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me, Allah. I followed the 5 pillars of Islam, and I honored the Sharia moral code as best as I could, and I beat Skyrim in Allah's name. If you want to see more like this, subscribe, and leave a comment about your favorite part of the video. And again, thanks to Guy Bordo for the original idea. Check his video out in the description below.